this is a large part of my research, looks at this notion of what does it mean to think entrepreneurially about a problem, to reason about a problem entrepreneurially, and then most importantly, to act entrepreneurially. So one of the first things about being entrepreneurial is being action oriented, that you're actually willing to, as I call, do the doable. So you don't wait for the perfect solution. So you're always working on version, 1 point something, because you've already jumped into version 1.0, and that may not be the perfect thing, but you kind of always do the doable and then push it and then push it. So that's in terms of action, that's one of the things that entrepreneurs do, and that is that they do. And then if you start thinking about what they do, right, then you start beginning to understand a little bit about what does it mean to be entrepreneurial. So one of the things that entrepreneurs are really good at doing, as I told you, especially the experienced ones, is to know to do things in a way that it is not going to involve huge investment outlay. Try to understand how the entrepreneurial worldview is different from other worldviews. Not necessarily from any non-entrepreneurial, but say how is it different from scientific or the religious worldview or maybe a sociological ethos or all these different ways that we could have of looking at the world. The fundamental thing about the entrepreneurial worldview is that you see a role for human action. For example, when you look at where does the future come from, a lot of entrepreneurs, even if they may not state it in so many words, they behave as though the future comes from what you and I do, that what human beings do matters. So they do not come from, say, some kind of inevitable trend. There's nothing that is deterministically or even probabilistically written that this is how it is going to go. Whether it is in terms of a new technology, whether it is in terms of where we are headed as human beings, whether it has to do with economic development or the social development of a human being. You take any problem, the entrepreneurial worldview would suggest that what we do matters and that what we do can make a difference. It may not be all that matters, but it's the first thing in a way that matters. That if you do not do something, then nothing will happen, is something they understand very, very well. So if you try something, you may or may not succeed. But if you do not try something, I can give you a guarantee it ain't going to succeed, right? So it's that kind of a reverse view of success, if you will. A lot of us wait and we think, if I think I could succeed at that, I would try it. An entrepreneur just simply says, here is a problem. I kind of know that the first step would work if I take it, and it looks like I can do it, so let me do it and then push it. Rather than, because what I do will make a difference to the odds. So I don't try to calculate all the odds first. Here I would like to give you the example of Mohammed Yunus, who started Grameen Bank in Bangladesh. Now, people praise him as some kind of heroic visionary, and actually he is, my hero in some ways. But I also study early stage entrepreneurship and how a lot of entrepreneurs who have built these very successful, enduring organizations, how they think. And some of the things you find early on suggests that it was not really the vision that drove them to do. They were looking at something much smaller. In fact, when Mohammed Yunus visited Darden, he actually said this. He said, when I was an economist, I thought big. I could see the big picture. I could see the sequence of events and how things would unfold. And, I had these general theories of the world and about human behavior. Now I'm an entrepreneur. I have like the worm's eye view. I see very few things, very little things, but I see them very, very clearly. And a lot of entrepreneurs are like that. So they see a little problem that is actually fixable and they fix it. And then that opens up new avenues, perhaps new problems. In Mohammed Yunus's case, he came across this village that was devastated and people had lost their livelihoods. And he finds something, I think he mentioned something like 45 people who required a total of $27 worth of capital. Well, he had $27. He gave it. So that's the first step. But that's not the key thing is not just that. You and I might have given it too, out of just empathy, if you will, or sympathy. But he went the next step. He started asking, if this is so easily fixable, why isn't it fixed already in a big way? So that the next step is the pushing. So he goes to a bank and he actually asks them, why don't you lend these people money? These are really paltry sums. And then they tell him that these people are unbankable, they are poor. And then he pushes that, and he pushes that. So if you listen to the story, so it's that first step that you do the doable, and then you push. And you believe that the pushing is going to make a difference, even though you may not have any guarantee that it will. And I think that is like the essence of the entrepreneurial worldview. If you do not think entrepreneurially, it doesn't mean that you're not going to make any difference in the world. So I want to say it's not entrepreneurial versus non-entrepreneurial. You could be a scientist and you could say that people are dying of smallpox, and what I really want to do is to solve that problem. And that problem obviously is not a question of giving somebody $27 and pushing. Maybe you do need to spend years studying it and working on it. So I want to make it very clear that I do not think of the world as entrepreneurial versus non-entrepreneurial. But the essence of the entrepreneurial worldview is this belief that what we do makes a difference, and that we can push it, and that you keep doing the doable and keep pushing it, and you work with a whole bunch of people and get them to work with you in interesting ways, in creative ways, and all kinds of good things will happen down the road. So that's the entrepreneurial worldview.